Thank you and welcome to Blackout Conversations. I appreciate you both taking the time today to sit down, talk with me. I'm really excited. This conversation about building community for me is extremely important, especially right now. I feel like we are living in an environment where a lot of the spaces that we're creating are being attacked, but also people are just really lacking direction on how to build community in their respective areas. So before we jump into the conversation, I first and foremost want to introduce the two people that I have with me. First off, we have Manny Almonte, and Manny is the CEO and founder of Camping to Connect. I'm just going to read a little bit of your bio from what I pulled from your website. But Manny is a passionate advocate for empowering men of color. He is the visionary founder of both Mastermind Connect Men's Collective and the Young Masterminds Initiative nonprofit organization. Through these platforms, he curates transformative experiences, enabling men of color to forge profound connections with their passions, inner selves, and community. Um, and then we also have Jalen Basile. Jalen is a facilitator, organizer, and outdoorsman who works closely with Manny with Camping to Connect and is dedicated to creating spaces that welcome and affirm Black, Indigenous, and people of color. His background is in outdoor education and positive youth development, and he supports and mentors young people for a number of youth organizations. Jalen organizes nature-based community events in Colorado and specializes in activities such as climbing, cycling, and overnight trips. In addition, Jalen is the founder of Travl Wide, a bikepacking outfitter that helps people develop their relationships with themselves, their community, and the land around them. So thank you both again for joining me today. I really do appreciate you taking this time out to essentially give back to the Blackout community. But I really just want to jump in because it seems like both of you have some background in the nonprofit space and potentially in the for-profit space. But can you just tell me a little bit about how you got started, and how you really got Camping to Connect off the ground?
That's a great question, and thank you, Tiffany, for having us here to the whole team at Blackout Fest. It is an honor to be invited to be part of this conversation in your community. Uh, for me, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20, 30 years now, um, and I was not necessarily part of the whole outdoor industry recreationally or not, right? I was more into traditional business and entrepreneurship. And you may hear an accent. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. And I moved to New York City when I was 20 years old. And now I live in Denver, Colorado for the last couple of years. So when I was in New York, although I grew up in the mountains and in the island, moving to New York City, I got caught up in that wheel, right, of the hustle and bustle and the busyness, that comes with living in big cities. And for a long time, the outdoors wasn't part of the equation unless I went on vacation, back home or somewhere else, but not while living in New York, and not realizing that I could drive 1 hour north and be in the woods. So building community for me was something important around 2015, 2016, because I knew a lot of people, but I didn't feel connected to a lot of people. Um, Sort of a social butterfly in many different senses, but not having meaningful connections. And around that time, I felt the need in my life to actually have a space where I could feel comfortable to talk about what's happening in my life, to be vulnerable, to have some sort of accountability, group. And a couple of friends and I started this idea of starting a mastermind group, right? So from this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, this concept of the mastermind is when two or more minds come together with a single purpose or idea or desires. They can form a mastermind, right? And so we started what we called the Mastermind Connect by inviting people who we believe could add value to our brotherhood. I wanted to build genuine brotherhood and not just talk about what was going well or the new car or the new job or anything, but really help each other find balance in life. And that turned out to be an interesting proposition in which, we started to invite those men that we believe could add that value. And because we're men of color and based on that social currency, ended up being other men of color. And as we're building this in New York, we realized the importance of having an affinity space, right? A space where we could all relate to, what we're going through, where we could speak the same language in a way, uh, culturally, right? As being part of the African diaspora. And we saw the value in that. We saw the value in supporting each other in our passions, being exposed to different experiences by whatever each member was providing or asking for support on. So we realized that we were learning a lot of new things, unlearning, relearning. And after a year of doing that, then we started to think about, community, and giving back and about how much value we had acquired from being intentional about this brotherhood. And the question, that begged the question, how would my life look like if I had this information when I was younger, if I had these experiences when I was younger. And that led to what we call the Young Masterminds Initiative, which is a nonprofit organization that we started then. And by that time, we had expanded to having a chapter in Washington, D.C. for the DMV area there. And, that led us here, Camping to Connect. We can talk more about that. But that's how I found myself in community and building community and becoming more adept to it and seeing how much value it was bringing to my life, how it was creating sort of a reinvention, of who I am. Um, and all of a sudden now I'm in this intersection of, environmental justice and social justice and just looking after, being passionate about the well-being of our people. And specifically for me, my track is for, men of color.
Yeah, I feel like that's so often the case. At least that was for me. I was in a situation where I just wanted to create the community. I wanted to exist for me. And then it kind of becomes bigger than you at some point. And so, yeah, I think having something that's very personally driven and very niche in what you did with the Mastermind Connect is honestly the key to keeping something, going for you because it's so personal. Jalen, is that a similar situation? And like I said, I know you've kind of got your hands in a lot of things, which is similar to what I did before I started my own things. Sometimes it's just like, how can I make that impact? Can you just tell me a little bit about how you got started with building community?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a kid who moved around quite a bit growing up, and community was not a part of our not a part of my family structure to like go see family all the time or even maintain relationships outside the family. We just because of a lot of instability, I ended up moving. To put it in perspective, I went to 12 different schools from first through 12th grade. So just like, and then I also, my parents are in the military, so moved around quite a bit from that. So growing up, I received this very transient um, like conditioning to, if there's people that come in my life or friends that I would make growing up, I kind of had this expiration date of about 2 years max, where I would have to then kind of go reinvent myself, make whole new friends, only to do that over and over. And when I was in college, I realized just kind of how isolated I felt because of that maybe coping mechanism that I had fostered growing up of reinventing myself, kind of uprooting myself, that kind of followed me into young adulthood. And so I came out to Colorado for the first time my sophomore year of college. And the following summer, I was working at a summer camp. And then the following summer, I returned to the summer camp and started working full time. Um, and it's also like a outdoor ed center, and we work with school groups. It was kind of a whole operation. But being out here, I was very alone because then I was like kind of working off in the woods, um, and like not it was like an hour drive to any city, which is Colorado Springs was the nearest town. um, and so I started to realize after a year of living there, I was like, oh, I need to like find some people to connect with, because I loved my job, loved the work, and even the team that I was with was amazing, but they were all like a completely white staff, and culturally, I was like definitely not, just very much an outsider in that way. And so um, that was kind of the start of my community building journey. And I like to say, instead of building community, facilitate community. And I've learned a great deal from Manny and his relationship building, or facilitation, on how important it is to be intentional with the people in your space, and that care about. And so I started in probably a year and a half, 2 years into living in Colorado, seeking out the Afro communities in the Front Range, and the Front Range like Denver, Boulder, Colorado Springs. And so that then led me to Outdoor Afro. If you've heard of Outdoor Afro, I was one of the founding um, volunteer organizers here in Colorado. And so having my community, that role of once a month leading some type of excursion or event, having my community also be a part of my accountability system, was super helpful for me to establish long-term relationships, which at the time was kind of a new practice for me. And now even to this day, I have some of the best relationships I've ever met were in some of those early outings that we did. And as I'm kind of uniquely in this outdoor space and have been for over a decade now, and have quite a bit of experience and skills. And as a Black man and a member of the Afro community who is very skilled in the outdoors, I also found this role and kind of like contribution that I could give back to my community in taking people outside and kind of facilitating these experiences with the natural world, which led to further community building for me, because it then wasn't just like, hey, I want, to catch up with my friends and maybe my mentors, but it was also a way for me to gain a larger purpose in my life out here in the mountains. And so that has led, after over 10 years of doing this, that has led me to have incredible relationships with the people here and kind of the community here in the Front Range of Colorado. Um, I often still am pushing back on that kind of conditioning to take off or uproot myself, um, and sometimes I have to let people know, hey, I'm going to be gone for like the next month or two, or six. This past winter, I did the snowbird thing. But having this community as a home base and a place where I can not only connect with people, but also really pour my skills and experience, and kind of raise the next generation of stewards of the outdoors, people who just recreate, who like to get outside, and kind of live that lifestyle that we all strive for out here in Colorado, has been incredibly fulfilling. So that's like kind of a gist of how I got here, maybe.
No, that's good. I appreciate the story, and everyone ends up in Colorado. It's just inevitable. Trust me, I was working on a second home in Colorado, very, very seriously for the past couple of years, because I do route development there, and it's a whole thing. But
Yeah,
one day I'll be there with y'all.
it's waiting for you. It's waiting
I
for you. It's a good place to be.
I know it really is. So can y'all, just for the people who don't know, can you talk about what is Camping to Connect? And more so than that, give me an idea of what the first year looked like with Camping to Connect. Was it all planning? Was it chaos? Was it, I think some people get into these ideas of wanting to create something and then don't realize what it's like when you really actually sit down and do it, and it takes a minute to find your feet. I'm sure now it's great. You have things smooth and routine. But just give me a little bit about what it is, who it serves, purpose, mission, and really what does that space look like, trying to build in the first year?
Yeah.
Manny, I would love to do like a past, present, future because those are very three different iterations of what Camping to Connect is, and that could be helpful for people embarking on this community building journey.
Want to go back to the future, you saying?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. Oh, let me do the easy, concise version of it, so first, and then I'll tell you the story behind it, right? Which is all about community, really. So, Camping to Connect at its core it's an outdoors, mentorship program that uses nature as a vehicle for connection, healing, build brotherhood, using restorative practices, and using nature as a space where we can bring the kids out of their comfort zone, removing technology from the equation and being able to experience, what brotherhood, right? So these are men of color working with young men of color specifically, right? So it's an affinity space. It's a what we call relatable mentorship, right? Being able to relate, being able to show up and share an experience without showing up as an authority figure or anything like that. Simply, we're gonna want to show you what we've learned about this space, why we love it. We want to share it with you, and want to get to know you. Want for you to get to know us, and in that space, we're gonna learn about the value of vulnerability and accountability and use those tools. And we're going to sort of teach these kids the things that we have learned along the way. Now, how we arrived there, kind of interesting because the men of Mastermind Connect, as we were looking for, to share different experiences and, from doing, what do you call it? Wellness practices, working out together at a park, going to some CrossFit gym, to doing Bikram yoga, in a candlelit room, with 20 men in a yoga studio, to even practicing like Muay Thai kickboxing, right? And all of these were things that either one or some of our members were passionate about, right? They liked that. They wanted to expose the other men to the things that they were passionate about. And in that, sharing that experience, some of the men would be like, wow, I didn't know I would like this. I want to do more of this, right? I want to be able to, have more experiences like this. So we kept adding, things like every other week we would get together and do different activities. Besides the activities, we had other spaces to talk about financial literacy or real estate conversations or cryptocurrencies or fatherhood, relationships, like all these different things we were doing that would add value to our lives. And everybody was game for that, for the yoga, for the Muay Thai kickboxing, getting punched in the face and all that, no problem. When I offered to go camping and hiking, I received a resounding hell no by like 80 men. These are men of color. And I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean? We can go relax, right? We can just go out there and that was like the sort of like the same answer from everyone. Like, come on, man, we don't do that. Like, yeah, but I never did yoga, I would say. And I'm doing it. I don't like getting punched in the face, and I did it. And so I convinced about 14 of them to go camping with me upstate New York. And Mastermind Connect went camping, so we called it Camping to Connect. And this man ended up out there in the woods. We have 40 acres of private land to ourselves, with the camping next to a creek and Beaver Creek and everything there. And we were hiking and helping each other, and it was raining, and we got through it. At the end of the evening, we're talking around the campfire. We're talking about cooking together and talking about relationship with our fathers, talking about fatherhood. And all of a sudden, you have this the CrossFit guy, the bodybuilder guy, breaking down, crying, about opening up about his relationship with his father and all that. And you have other men coming to hug him saying, me too, I got you, I love you, I'm here for you. And it was extremely powerful, to the point that we've been doing it ever since, every year, sometimes twice a year. So coming back from that experience, that was in 2017. We had started working with the youth, and the opportunity came up. We were doing some career panels and other things in partnership with the New York City Department of Education, taking over, Hunter College or St. Francis College in Brooklyn, sort of an auditorium on a Saturday morning, bringing kids from all 5 boroughs, 150 kids, to do these curated experiences. And we convinced the Department of Education to allow us to take the boys camping for a weekend. Going out to the woods in nature was something that we had a hard time getting approved because, again, New Yorkers are not used to that. And we had very supportive, the leadership that we're talking to at the DOE were these amazing Black women who were down for, like, they saw the value in what we were offering and they were down for anything. And we said, go camping. They too said, hell no, because again, it's not part of our culture. No, that's what we've been taught living in the US over the last few years. And so the fears kicked in immediately, bears, wolves in New York, like there's any, all these different things. And so we had to start having those conversations. And for them, on a personal level, they were saying, listen, if it was my kid, I would let them go, but it's the liability with all of this. And so very hard time. It was months of conversation with this idea. We finally convinced them to let us take them to Governor's Island. Governor's Island is a little island off of New York Harbor that used to be a Coast Guard training facility, and it was at some point abandoned. The city took over with a trust and made it into this amazing, park. They do concerts, all these things there during the day in the summer, right? So from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., they will have ferries, going back and forth from New York and Brooklyn to Governor's Island. And we, some way, somehow, don't ask me how, but we ended up having access to this amazing place, a little island where you can see, when you are there, you can see Brooklyn and Manhattan and Staten Island behind us, the Statue of Liberty, like right in front of us. And they hadn't allowed anyone to camp there before, and we gained the access to do it. So it was a very privileged position to be in. And for us, it was sort of a statement, right? Like, we who don't see ourselves in this space or are not seeing like we belong in this space, we're going to actually have an opportunity where other people don't have access to this, but we do. It was very expensive. We had to have a ferry stay overnight, and we had to have an ambulance there and everything, an EMT. But we did, and we brought about 35 young men, and they all loved it. So that was in 2018. And once we developed that trust, with the DOA and the team, we were able to actually go out to nature, in 2019. And so we started with that one trip in 2018 that turned into 4 trips in 2019. Then we got hit with the COVID-19 pandemic, where a lot of the programming that we were doing during the, the career panels and all that, we had to cut it, March 12th when the city went shut down, cut it off. And when the city allowed, or the state allowed us to go to meet in person outdoors, social distancing and all, back in July 10th, I believe, we took off running. We went to the woods and we started to do weekly day hikes and camping week and camping trips, where we were able to have these conversations that we couldn't have. We had Zoom fatigue, having these workshops and all these things over Zoom was just too much. And the kids loved it. So by 2020, we went from one trip in 2018 to talking about camping specifically, not even counting for day hikes, from 1 in 2018 to 4 in 2019 to 8 in 2020 to 12 in 2021 to 16 in 2022. And this is just New York, right? And then last year, I moved to Colorado at the end of 2021. And we piloted the program here in Colorado, because here too, although we are a super minority, we have people of color here. And the same narrative of, the sense of belonging or lack thereof, even though we live in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, our community here, the kids especially, they don't feel like, the outdoor recreation is something that they belong in. They may go on a high school trip maybe for something, but still they see the majority of kids and who actually is very proficient in that. And, their parents may never have done it or don't have the access to it, working 2 jobs and all, single family homes. So we realized that there's a lot of work to be done here, right here in Colorado. And the proof is in the pudding. We ran a pilot last year, and now we are fully active in Colorado as well. This year, we're running a pilot in New Jersey, meaning working with kids from New Jersey specifically. And next year we're looking to do Philadelphia. So we're going to be in Pennsylvania as well. So we're going to be in 4 states by next year.
How do you sort of go from that one event to expanding to multi-cities? Like, what really helped get you? Because I think some people get stuck and they do their thing, and it's really hard to not only grow, but just sustain that one thing. So I think it's helpful if people really understand, like, what recommendations you would have for someone who's like, I want to start a youth organization or a men's organization or a queer organization. Like, how do I get started? But also, how do I sustain that organization, especially through a pandemic?
Man, I don't even know how to answer that question right now because I don't think I recommend it to anyone. It is needed. It is much needed for for us to, somebody has to do it, and sometimes that somebody is you, right? For us, at no point when we started this journey, we were thinking about starting a youth program or initiative. It was just the men's collective, the brotherhood, because we needed that space. I started it because I needed that space. I needed that community. Part of that is that sense of community. Is like, how can we support the larger scope of our community, right? Like the people who we live with, the upcoming generation. And so having a community of men who saw that the value in coming together, and all collectively deciding that as part of what we do, we need to give back. So we collectively made that decision. Giving back meant focusing on the younger versions of ourselves. Okay, so then we went there. It was becoming expensive because we were doing more things and going camping and all that. We didn't have a gear library or anything, right? So now things are becoming expensive. But we did a GoFundMe campaign, then realized that they took a lot of money from it, percentage-wise. And the question was, as we're doing the GoFundMe, kept being about, are you a nonprofit? It's a 501c3. I want to talk to my employer, maybe employee matching. I want to connect you with this opportunity, but you need to be a nonprofit. Because we wanted to do more, we decided to start a nonprofit. Nobody wanted to run a nonprofit organization. Nobody. Again, I have my own, business endeavors. So did every other member of the collective. From creative types to teachers to executives of Microsoft and Facebook, like we had it all. But everybody was volunteering their time, to maybe do a career panel, maybe go on a weekend on a camping trip. So nobody wanted to necessarily have to run an organization. And like I said before, that sometimes that somebody is you. And I was the one who started the concept of like going camping. I was the one who started the concept of, let's take the boys out there camping. And I was organizing sort of like this, the way my brain works, and being a sort of CEO, president and CEO of the collective. I had to like file the paperwork and all that. So I became then the CEO of the organization. And for 5 years, I know we had a small board made up of members of the collective, and everybody else was volunteering. And so this is volunteer based. I didn't draw a salary. Nobody did until I moved to Colorado and talking about expansion. And it was taking a lot of our time. And we started to find some, I wouldn't say deficiencies, but it's like it wasn't scalable to continue to do it the way that whenever we had the time. And we were burning ourselves out. So the board decided to sort of like, hey, can we work something out where you can dedicate more time for this? And I became the first employee after 5 years of doing this. And it continues to be a volunteer-based organization. We all help, however we can. Jalen became basically the second staff member officially. We have about 27 men who sort of volunteer for Camping to Connect. The rest of the men are more proficient in other areas, other the wellness pieces, the life skills, and all this other areas. But the key, I think, what makes us, I don't want to say different, but what I feel makes us special in a way is that for the most part, notwithstanding like Jalen, who's a professional in this field, the facilitators, the ones who run this camping trips and hikes and all that, were men that, a few years ago, they themselves this was foreign to them. So, they do go through training, the outdoor leadership, through our partnership with the Appalachian Mountain Club in New York, and, Jalen in Colorado is leading, the education effort. But the idea that we go out with this young man to the outdoors and hiking, reading a topo map, like doing all these things out there. And for the young men to see that this is new to them, but then to see that the men they're working with, or they're sharing the space with, a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, they also believe this wasn't for them. This wasn't like, oh, I grew up on this, let me show you. This is, no, I'm you yesterday. And I just want to show you how I came to love it. Maybe you get to love it too. Within all of that, we still don't consider ourselves an outdoor recreation or education program. We're not called Connect to Camp. We're called Camping to Connect. So the connection, the community, the brotherhood, the healing space is the program. We just use camping and hiking and like these outdoor activities to get there. Now, within that process, we do teach them how to, read a topo map, how to pitch a tent, how to be safe in the outdoors, about leave no trace principles, like all the things that we've learned. So we pass it down to them, but that's not our program. We don't take kids out to teach them about how to hike. We hike with them so that we can connect.
And one thing I want to expand on a little bit there is and to kind of answer the question around the scalability of things. I have come to terms and a huge head wall with my own like lone wolf syndrome, and I think in this like entrepreneurial community organizing space that can be um, quite common, unfortunately, because it's like the propaganda that we're fed. But um, it really takes like a village to raise a program like this, or to like build a program like this. And I think when we're talking about community building, the intentionality of bringing people in and maintaining those relationships, and it is tough. It's like adopting a new family. It's like checking in on people when maybe the last interaction wasn't that great, but that this relationship benefits not only you personally but collectively, or um, sacrificing other parts of your life to show up for this community. Like that's really what it entails. And I think the longevity of that happen, or the how do I say, the history that the mastermind connect group has had in New York and now extending to Colorado, that history has like just provided a solid foundation for us to finally scale. And I'm coming in kind of on, the cake is made. I'm kind of helping put the cherry on top, which feels really cool. Still a lot of work, but is not where we started. And so I just I can't overstate the importance of the relationship building. And I think also being very very vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm like getting burnt out, as a founder, Manny, um, or being like, hey, we really need to distribute some of these responsibilities. It can't, for a long time, it was Manny and a handful of people in New York putting things together. And I came in at the beginning of the year and it still has been that way. And now I can share that load with Manny because it was honestly way more than any one person should be doing. And I think in a lot of these community affinity spaces, and whether it be a climbing club or a running club or whatever type of space, distributing responsibilities, kind of having a community agreement on how we're showing up, how frequently we're showing up, and being intentional about the organization of the community, not just the relationships, but okay, how are we interacting, allows for the scalability, allows to take on bigger opportunities. Because I think it's really awesome that a lot of people see what we do with Camping to Connect and want to like promote us and get us up there and offer these opportunities. And the only reason we're able to do that today is because of how we've organized ourselves and it's not a destination. We're still doing that, to be able to take on those things. And we really we really fall back on the hours and hours of time that the volunteers are, the other brothers that we, meet up with once a week, do, because without them, I mean, we can't do what we do.
Yeah, I'm glad you went there. And also, Manny, I appreciate you giving me the bigger picture view, because I feel like so often people undervalue building a team. Um, so many people get excited, they want to do a thing, and they're the only one doing the thing, and they do that thing until they run themselves into the ground and they don't want to do it anymore. Adios. Like you said, to be able to say, I'm burnt out, I need to take a step back, or to just keep it pushing. You know, I wanted to really raise the question because there's three levels of this, right? There's community groups that are literally just groups, and probably how y'all started, where it was just a group of people, a group of men, and we're just a group. Then there's the nonprofit organization part of it, where you formalize, you incorporate, you decide to be a bit more structured because now we're trying to actually make it financially sustainable. Then you have the for-profit side. And I always get people who come to me to ask, which of the three should I do? and and I'm not saying I have the answers or anyone really has the answers to understand like what area makes the most sense for them. Because I think not everyone needs to become a nonprofit. I think depending on what your goals are, it's not necessary. But I would love if you could is there any advice if there's someone sitting on the couch right now planning their next event and they are like, I want to become official, I want to become a nonprofit, I don't just want to have events, free events at a gym or meetups at a gym or this or that. Like, what advice would you give somebody who's seriously thinking about incorporating or becoming a non or for profit? Um, yeah, I think it's a tough place. Um, and I just hope that maybe y'all have some advice for people that I haven't been able to give.
That's a great question, actually, and it's great that I think Jalen and I both independently we have both tracks, right? So Jalen, part of Camping to Connect, and supporting with all his knowledge and the background that he has, but he also has Travl Wide, right? So Travl Wide is a
Mhm.
for profit, and doing this bikepacking, introduction to bikepacking, and doing tours and supporting other communities, even working with nonprofits. I don't want to speak for you, Jalen, on this. I just
Mhm.
love the fact that you see the value in community building this way, supporting Capital to Connect, but also retaining that sort of autonomy for services,
Yeah.
which also
Mhm.
support community, right? Um,
Yeah. I would, to kind of jump in there. I've worked at way more nonprofits than for-profit companies, and I think, and now having started a small business, I think a question I kind of answered for myself is what is my end goal? Like at the end of the day, when I look back, what is it that I want to leave behind? Is it like, are the people, um, I mean, I guess it's always like the service you're providing to the people, and what they benefit from it. But um, I think identifying that and then just how you get there is, I want to say, having a library of models that you can go to that kind of are similar, that you can reference and be like, okay, I like this. Like when I was building my, it's an S corp. When I was building my company, it was, um, I looked at a handful of outfitters, a handful of guiding companies, and at the time I did know that those are two different things, and then a handful of community groups slash nonprofits. And I was like, okay, I want to take a little bit from each of these, and what then makes the most sense. And even reaching out to a lot of people from those different sectors really helped me formalize my decision. And I don't think I would have been able to do that without having laid out those models, or those examples rather, um, and then realizing, okay, I want to offer a service that has a price that is kind of filling a gap within the market right now. I didn't want to do a nonprofit because I wasn't interested in having my like strings tied to money, in the whole grant writing complex now. I wasn't interested in that. I really wanted to make my own money and kind of have a hand on the supply demand um, part of that. And so, and then the board and everything, I wanted to build a team. I didn't necessarily want to build a board, which can be the very same thing. With Camping Connect, we have a volunteer board, so we're always working together. Um, but yeah, that I don't know. That's probably like my initial thoughts,
Yeah.
somewhat formed thoughts.
Yeah. And for me, and I know that we're talking about right now the outdoors, the industry and recreationally and the things that sort of fall into that box. But when I took the position, like I said, after 5 years, first of all, I was under the average or whatever an executive director, CEO of a nonprofit organization of our size and for a region for New York, especially like when we expanded to Colorado multi-region, it was definitely underpaid. It was more of an effort that the board was making in sort of valuing my time because I was dedicating so much time to it and taking away from my own businesses to dedicate for this. So in order for me to be able to focus on this, I was losing revenue, right? I was losing money because my time now is dedicated to this. So the board was making an effort to help there. A decision had to be made on my end about what is valuable to me, right? First of all, I found purpose in this work, right? Intention, purpose. The value that the work and the impact that we're doing in our community and for these boys and for the men that are my brothers, that this was having on them was directly related to the impact of my life, right? So the way that was showing up with my family, the way that I'm affected by all these people in a positive way, the way that I'm affecting them also filled my cup, right? So I had to make a decision: it's money or purpose. And I'm not saying that you have to be poor to be purposeful, but the drive, especially as a New Yorker, of like money, 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 business, business all the time, is a very lonely place, because then it's just you connect after yourself. Then you miss out on, again, the bigger picture and community, which for me at my age at least, it brings a lot of value to my life. So Mastermind Connect is a for-profit. Your Masterminds Initiative is a non-profit. So Mastermind Connect is membership-based, right? So the members pay dues. That's what I was saying. It was costing us money to run these kids for the kids because now we are pulling the money together and spending it here, besides the money that we needed to use for the activities that we were doing ourselves, right? For the men outside of the boys. We were putting together retreats and we were putting together opportunities, social events and things like that in New York and in DC, where it was beyond our members, so beyond just men, so people of color in general, right? So a conference, that sort of thing we were putting together, where it was a sort of a revenue driver. I myself have a web design firm, and at some point I had to, and that's where my time comes in, where I couldn't do both, and I had to make a decision and stopping to take new clients for me to take care of myself. I had to then subcontract, basically, have a team of people that can do the work and sort of sustain the clients that I already had, which, because it wasn't nothing like new, it was sort of maintenance, right? So having that pipeline there, having the Mastermind Connect being a for-profit, and then being able to focus on this, having partners, which is very important, that allow me the bandwidth, right? Not to have to be focused on this all the time, is also important. So sort of creating different tracks, sort of helps. But this is like, the web design thing is just me. There's no community there. Mastermind Connect allows me to build community with my brothers, offer opportunities and services that where I have other people involved and also benefiting, right? So one of our guys, Talib Jasir, he runs Afros and Audios, which is a collective of podcasters of color, right? So we support his endeavor, and when he puts a conference together and everything, like, we're part of that, right? So now that's a different sort of pipeline, but at the same time, it's still community driven. And that allows us then to say, your Masterminds Initiative, now we fully give back here, still part of community, still intertwined with, Mastermind Connect, right? So we support, that wheel, sort of reach the wheel for your masterminds. And it allowed us to grow. And you asked me a question earlier about going to different states and that sort of scalability. Because whatever we have members of the collective, like we could, we had like 2 or more members, we could effectively run programming. And again, it's volunteer based. The reason why the burnout came up for last year for me personally, and when Jalen came in to support now as a staff member, it was because that drive that we had, the impact that we were seeing, we went from, again, 1 camping trip to 4 to 8 to 12. So we were just adding more. We were being put in front of more kids, plus the ones that we already had. We didn't want to be a one-off program. We didn't want to be we take you out one time and bye. Like, what, 13 to 18 years old, at whatever point you come in, we want to build with you until you become a young adult. And by the time you turn 18 years old, then you're part of the Mastermind Connect brotherhood, right? So at that point, it's like, okay, how can we do more? How can we do, now we have more kids, but we want to keep it intimate to like 10, 12 kids per trip. So now we have to do, instead of 1, 2 trips, now we have to do 4, 5, 6, right? Because to sort of split now, instead of 10 kids, 60 kids, we have over 300 kids right now on our roster. So that brought more expenses, right? That brought more also time out there, more volunteers needed, more time from our current volunteers. And we got to the point where it's like, okay, at some point, as you scale up, now you have to invest in like not just the activity or what you're doing, but running the organization and bringing people with the talent, to do that and dedicate the time for that. So it's not easy. Ideally you focus on one. I didn't come into this space to make money at all. Again, I make less money now. But again, I found purpose. Still, I sort of left the doors open, floodgates open for other sources of revenue. And even now I'm talking about another business opportunity with a friend where now I have to be smart. It's anything that I do now into any new business, it's like, I know that my bandwidth is not there. So how can I sort of invest or like just put my hand in something where my time is not consumed by this endeavor, if that makes sense? Because this is what brings me joy. This work is what brings me joy, makes me happy, and takes like my mind, my heart, my soul is into this, right? But I also need to feed my family, and I also want to be. I mean, I'm not growing younger. I need to be able to look at the future for myself, and while I support and nurture my community, I need to also make sure that my family is nurtured and that I nurture as well, right? So it's sort of a balance. How do you keep that between who you're serving and also who you are responsible for, in this case, my family?
I do want to talk about what any nuggets you can give somebody as far as personality traits they have to have, preparation they need to be ready for, whether they continue to stay just a group or become a nonprofit or become a for-profit. What do people really need to understand to be successful with raising funds? And I don't mean enough to even pay a salary, because I'm not at that point. I can't pay people's salaries. But I think there's a level or a lack of understanding of the money part of these things. And you can only do things for free for so long before it starts
Mhm.
to kind of hit. And
Yeah.
this is about sustainability. A lot of the main reason I wanted to have this conversation is I don't want to go 5 years later and then all these amazing groups that I saw pop up
Mhm.
are now gone.
Yeah, I think, this is an area that I am actively growing in, fundraising, and I think partnerships are lumped in with that. And so I think to start, it is so critical to look at like personally, look at our own relationships with money and to identify what sorts of narratives and behaviors have I stepped into adulthood with regarding money? Because I think that self awareness is so crucial for how to then intentionally move. in a community space, in a business space, a nonprofit space. If I've seen um, people who are just maybe really money shy, talking about it as fearful, as you're saying, there is taboo. People who are like get really passionate about money, that can be almost like overly assertive, um, which for the shy folks that really freaks them out. And and then I think there's like a balance, right, of like being assertive, um, being competent in what you're talking about, and being vulnerable and saying, hey, I actually don't know how that works. Can you tell me more about that grant process? Or like, how does venture capitalists, that relationship work, et cetera, et cetera. So having some self-awareness is a really great start to that. And also knowing that money, we desire money, right? Like, if you live in America, you likely have some goal for how much money you want to make. And I think something that changed my perspective is it's not about um, it's not about where the money comes from, it's about who it comes from. Money is constantly in the hands of people. It's not just this, it's not like only sitting in a bank. It's also people are in charge of moving money around. And so not having attachments to who it comes from or where it comes from, but being open to receive the funds that we need from unexpected places, I think is a really great mindfulness practice when it comes to finance or fundraising. Um, I know Manny has come back from conferences and has been like, yeah, I like met this person, and we're like now talking about what type of funding could look like, and it's like that was so unexpected. And I think that tends to happen more times than not. Um, and so just making sure that we're not getting super attached to like, oh, I really want this, Adidas scholarship or grant or something, and it's like it has to be, this grant. I think can kind of limit our view to what else is out there, is really helpful. And then there was one more thing, but I forgot it. Manny, what would your tips be?
I don't know about tips, but I'll say this. We all, not we all, but I know that this phrase is not new, right? If we want to go, fast, go alone. If we want to go far, go together, right? Like is this idea that I have different entrepreneurial endeavors, for many years, and many of them by myself, and struggle. And sometimes you put a lot of time and energy into something, and you don't see the return on investment, at least not what you expect. And I found that if you have the right partners, if you have the right people, with you, the load is, it's less of a burden in a way, or at least it's shared. You may think to yourself, well, I'm making less money because I have to share that money, but really you get to have more business and do more things and without burning yourself out if you actually get to share. Also, the talents that come, right? My experience is added to, let's say, Jalen's experience, and now we can both add more value to it instead of just like, what I can offer. So that's one. Not saying that you have to go the partnership route. I'm saying that has worked for me in a way. Um, it helps also like to have a community of people, whether it's other entrepreneurs or people who are in the field that you want to attack, where you can find mentors and you can have support and you can just bounce ideas off of. And sometimes just listen, right? Sometimes just being in the room matters, right? Sometimes you pick up things or things come to you by just being in the room instead of your room of isolation, your box, what I mean, your apartment. Like, you have to get out there. Like Jalen was saying, I don't necessarily like going to conferences, especially not because I don't like being in the room or anything. Like it's like there's so much stuff that we're doing that we had to stop, pause, to then spend 3-4 days somewhere to sit down and listen and shake hands. And it's like, and in the back of my mind, it's like I have so much waiting for me. And at the beginning, every time I'll tell you, I feel the same way. And then at the end, for the most part, like Jalen said, there's an opportunity that came. There was an introduction that was made. There was somebody who told me, like, I've been waiting to meet you. I heard a lot about you, but I wanted to have a conversation. And it's like, oh, now we have this pipeline or this partnership, this collaboration that can come from it. So a lot of value in that. And I feel that has come to us because they see the authenticity, they see the intention, they see the value of our mission and our vision, right? So it's not just like, I don't know what we're doing, but what we're talking about, where we're going. It's very like, we're a small organization, but we're like mighty in our vision, right? And we've been punching above our weight since day one, at least within the space of the nonprofit. And I would say even for the Men's Collective. And being open to pivot sometimes, and being open also to walking through doors that open up for you made by others, or simply it maybe just cracked a little bit, and being curious enough to say, let me explore this, let me see what's on the other side of this. And that's what led, again, even to the nonprofit, right? Like, we didn't think about doing this. Now we're doing it. And then we reached out, for example, to Patagonia to ask them for a small grant, for the work we do. We were a little bit late for it, but we had the conversation, showed them a 1 minute, sort of video of what we're doing. And they said, you're a little late for this grant. We might want to revisit it 6 months from now. But how about a media grant? We have that, we have 2 more weeks for that. $20,000. If you were to apply for it, I'm sure that you would, get it based on the work you're doing and your mission and the message. So you know what? Okay, we'll take it. We make instead of a 1 minute reel, make a 3 minute YouTube video that sort of speaks to the work we do. We can use it for fundraising. We can use it for, recruitment for volunteers, for the kids and all that. And then we ended up making a short film, Wood Hood, and 15 minutes. We premiered at the Mountain Film Festival in Telluride. It went around the film festival circuit. It was winning awards. It ended up being selected for Banff. It won Best Short at Banff. Now it's on a global tour for the next 3 years. Now it's being used in conferences, and it's being used in schools and universities to start conversations like the ones we're having here, but more than anything about, the importance of affinity spaces, the importance of diversity in the outdoors, nature as a place of healing. Like, all of this, right, is happening because an opportunity was presented to us, and we said yes. We said, okay, we're not filmmakers, we didn't set out to do any of that, but we tapped the right people.
Manny, I want to say one thing kind of on this is like working with Manny has been really great because you do have that personality, like for you to talk about your mission and your why and um who you are and where you come from is just such a you're like oozing with authenticity and like vibration. And the people who out there who are not like that, like I'm pretty introverted, and it does take a lot for me to go up and like say those things and give voice to those things. I think finding people like Manny is so critical to share that load again. I think I've had to do quite a bit of that myself, and even when when Manny and I were onboarding, I was like, "Hey, Manny, I see how you move in this space. I want to get better at that." And so maybe it's not something that Manny and I obviously work together with Camping Connect, but maybe it's somebody in your life who can give you feedback that is really useful on how to better speak about ourselves and the work that we're doing and our why, and show people why it's worth whatever dollar amount you are asking for, and why it's worth more than that, and the impact that it has on the people. Being able to articulate that is a skill. I don't believe in the like you either have it or you don't. I think it is a very learnable skill. And after conferences, for me, I get back and I'm absolutely wiped. I need like 3 days to I might as well have went and like tried to climb Everest or something, because I'm like pretty done. But I can get in the room, because of like trying to grow in these ways where, as for Manny, comes like pretty naturally. So just want to speak a little bit to the personality piece to this, because I think some of us are like, oh well, hearing Manny your story, it's like, oh yeah, well, you're like pretty, so can be a social butterfly in a lot of ways, but for those that aren't, it is a learnable skill, and you can get there.
Again, if you asked me 5 years ago when I started this journey, there wouldn't be no conversations about this. I wouldn't be talking to you. Woodhood wouldn't exist. Wouldn't be working with you. None of that would be happening. But I was open every time, and also seeking, again, within this purpose, alignment with those who are leading, who are driving things forward and saying, I too want to be with you in this space and drive things forward for us.
Whatever your thing is in the outdoor space, camping, hiking, biking, climbing, how do you maintain your connection to that thing while you're building it for so many other people?
Well, it's mindfulness, where you are, what you need. You can get lost in the sauce of, like, again, this community space and leading and providing and being of service. And then you can empty your cup really fast, and then have nothing really to give, or at least of quality, right? And you don't want to get to the point where you become resentful of the work. You want to be able to continue to do. So you have to fill your cup. You have to nourish yourself. I just came back from a conference in Atlanta. We Are One Summit with Justice Outside, Next 100 Coalition, and PGM1, People of the Love Majority for nature, Outdoors, Nature, and the Environment. Meeting so many environmentalists of color, so many people in this space. Long days and everything, but I came back like literally filled with, because I spent time with them. And being intentional also means, like, when I went to that retreat in Minnesota, with Boys in the Woods, I remember getting there and telling CJ and his team, hey, anything you need, let me know. If you need some support, I'm here for you guys. And as I was saying it, I stopped and I said, hold on, pause. No, I'll take that back. I'm here just to, I need to rest. I know you got this. You don't need me for anything. If you need somebody, you have all these young people here. Like, you guys got this. Like, I just need the rest. And immediately CJ was like, Manny, I see you. I know that if it's up to you, you would, like, you know what I mean? Like, help us run this thing, and like quality and all. But just, if you want to go to your cabin and just rest for the day, if you want to go to the lake, do whatever you feel that you need to, refill your cup, which I appreciated so much, because he also meant that. Like, he knows that I meant what I was saying, but he also knows that I'm like burning out. So it's like, just relax, we got this. And I did. And it was beautiful. And that's why I want to do more of it, right? Because those are my spaces. Tomorrow, for the weekend, 4th of July, Jalen, myself, other men, some coming from New York, we're gonna go camping at the Great Sand Dunes, and we're gonna, hang out and chill. This is just guys, and it was something that we've done before. Next month, I'm going to New York to do our camping trip for the men. But it's interesting, again, like, Jalen is going to, at least is planning to do a 14er here in Colorado on Friday with one of the guys that's coming from New York, or two 14ers, right? And it's like, great, we're gonna go together. And my ego is saying, well, you have to do at least one, like, you have to show that you do. But then my more rational part of my brain is saying, no, let them do their 14ers. You stay in the hammock, you chill under a tree, relax. And that's what I'm planning to do. So it's sort of like, it's talking to myself. Like, yes, I know that I could, but why should I? I need to also slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's gonna do that for you. Like, this is something that you have to tell yourself. You have to tell yourself. You have to come out of your own way, in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Manny, actually, to share real quick, Manny and his wife just had an anniversary. Congrats, Manny. And we're off, different part of the country for like a week, and I literally told Manny, I do not want to hear from you. Do not. No news is good news, and he stuck to it, which was great, because I know that that can be challenging. I'm really feeling this right now with bike packing, because I take people bike packing, and this year so far, I have not gone on one bike packing trip. Um, and usually, by beginning of July, I'm like 3 or 4 bike packing trips in personally. Um, and I think acknowledging that your work and your play, whenever you mix those, it can sometimes the pendulum can swing one way, um, for a time period and then swing back to another time period, and honoring that. And so for me with bike packing, I love to ride my bike, but I That's like my number one outlet and how I like stress relieve and self-soothe. And I'm like very okay with not going and doing the big adventures. I think right now I've really been excited about the small adventures, like micro adventures. Um, and just giving myself some grace of like, this is the season. Like as an outdoor educator, the busy season is in the summer. And, right now, this time is temporary, but it's a time for me to just do a lot of service to others. Um, and my time will come, and I'm very okay with that. Um, but I think there's also something that's worth sharing is I think we are so hung up on this idea of balance, and maybe this isn't a popular opinion, but it is my opinion, where there's a lot of buzz about, having balance in all the parts of your life. And I think once you start doing one thing really well, that simultaneously unbalances another part of your life. And so I have kind of tried to get away from this idea of like striking balance between all the things of my life and just on instead acknowledging that, hey, work right now is taking a lot of time and that's necessary right now. And, my free time is not the priority, or my relationship is not the priority. And knowing that, okay, I've given a lot of time during this season to this one thing, and next season or time period, whatever, however your calendar looks, knowing that the pendulum is going to swing back, and that is how it should be. We can't do everything well, and I think if we strive to do everything well, we actually end up doing nothing well. And so yeah, just it's like I love camping, I love bike packing overnights and stuff, but I do it so much for work right now. Literally the last thing I want to do is go sleep outside. I like am very okay coming home to my house and going on a bike ride for a couple hours and coming back. Um, so I'd say that I keep in mind quite a bit, and just try and acknowledge like this. We are doing some big work right now, and the weight on the shoulders feels quite heavy, and that's how it should feel. And whenever it's our down season, come this winter, we're going to be able to really set that weight down, and do engage in a different kind of work. That's going to feel refreshing, so that this moment right now isn't temporary.
Is there anything else that, y'all are working on that you want to share that you haven't already shared?
I appreciate that. And just from what Jalen was saying right now, what my takeaway is basically to, honoring the seasons, right? Like there's different seasons in our lives, and not just for the year, not just like, oh, this is a programming season versus rest. Like this year may not look the same next year, right? Like it's things come, go, health, all these different things happening. Maybe having more people, right? More staff that can support the work we do, so we can be more relaxed, and so be mindful of not adding more to the plate, rather firing yourself. I'm firing myself from different positions, different hats that I've been wearing. I'm like, yep, take this hat, you take this hat, you take that hat. I'm still involved. I'm still very, driven, but like just recognizing that you don't have to burn yourself out to be successful, right? Um, for us, right now, in order for us to continue to grow the way that we want to, scale, or at least the way that we've been asked, the demand that's there for the work we do, we need to build capacity. So, there's a call out here for volunteers, not just for in the execution of it, but even administratively. Execution means men of color with a certain emotional level of emotional intelligence, not necessarily outdoor skills. The back end then requires more specific skills, right, to be able to support communications, marketing, all these different things that we need support on. So I do put a call out there to whoever's watching, that we are in need of support, especially in the back end. You can go to campingtoconnect.com, click on the volunteer button. And yeah, I'm traveling. I'm going on speaking engagements and sort of evangelizing, right, for the work we do, and advocating for something beyond the work we do at Camping to Connect, which is about diversity in the outdoors and mental health, and so advocating for these spaces. Woodhood was a good start. I think down the line we're looking to use it as a pilot for something bigger experience. We are bringing kids from New York City to come backpack in the Continental Divide here in Colorado. Want to be able to grow that. Want to bring kids from Colorado to New York and sort of like have these experiences where the kids are now going beyond their, the area where they live in, and sort of have also be able to tell that story and in a way that it brings awareness to not only the complex issues that we have, that we go through as people of color, as men of color, as young men of color, but even navigating this space, right, and the growth that happens through it. I want to be able to show that trajectory, and I think that in itself is a project that film would be a great avenue to showcase that. So if you like Woodhood as a short film, and we won an award, we're hoping that we can expand that into something bigger and sort of a series, and that's something that we're actively working on, and I think I said a lot with that.
Yeah, I think just to reiterate off of what Manny said, I think the need for volunteers, other young men of color, or not even young men, but just men of color within New York area as well as Colorado is always great. We have a solid group of men that get together weekly and or biweekly, and then a handful of those go out with us. But especially as we move into the winter, we're not going to be camping so much an overnight experience, but we're going to be wanting to bring in different levels of expertise in a variety of areas. So, if there's something that you're skilled in that you think a group of young men could have a positive exposure to, we would love to talk with you. I think on the docket right now we have like fly fishing is one. We have a couple of events coming up where this black man in Colorado Springs is going to take us fly fishing. So things like that, I think, are always welcome, and we'd love to bring you into the Brotherhood. And then on the Black Foxes and Travl Wide side, we are going bikepacking this summer at the very end of summer. So mid-summer, let me just get the date right. July next month on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of August. We're going to be heading out on a 2-day bike pack. And if you can't make Friday, getting there early, that's okay. That's just going to be a base camp day. And this is in Colorado. Saturday, we're going to be departing, doing an overnight, swimming in a river. I am taking the group to one of my favorite places on the planet. It is a gem within Colorado. And if you don't know, I won't disclose that yet. You'll have to tune into or click on the links to find out where this is. But we're going to be going to one of my favorite places for this bikepacking overnight. So again, that is the 23rd, 24th, 25th of August.
Where should they go? What's the link? Where should they go?
We can share it. You can find it on theblackfoxes.com. We'll have a webpage for it likely by Monday. And then we are also partnering with Patagonia in Denver to do the weekend before to do a bikepacking workshop to pretty much go over all the things you need to know. And as well as there'll be a raffle for actually Camping to Connect will be the beneficiary. So we're going to be giving out some really sweet prizes, one of them being a sleeping bag. And if you don't know about the Patagonia sleeping bags, they are literally the best and nobody's talking about it, probably because they're so expensive, but you could get one for the cost of a raffle. So that'll be in August. And then after that, I think the fall is still our oyster. We're kind of dreaming up of what the fall looks like. I'm all of a sudden becoming a road cyclist, which is wild. So I think I would love to take some people up some mountain passes while the colors are popping off in Colorado.
And I'll make sure I share all the links where people can donate, volunteer, support, participate. We have an email list that goes out to our collective members and as well as with this video. So I'm happy to share. And we do have folks in Colorado and definitely New York, all over the country. And our folks travel. So, if they find value in these spaces, which I know they do, they'll support. And I'm here because I support the work that y'all are doing. I really, like I said, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy days. And I totally understand being super busy. So I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody watching finds some value. And yeah, I look forward to continuing to support you and seeing the work that y'all do.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank
Yeah,
y'all.
thank you. This was amazing.